Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say, it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Thursday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to carry. It's Thursday. That means we'll be joined by Brent Beaird here shortly. And the second portion of the show is the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. And we'll be joined by Mike Ridaught from the prepzone.com talking about high school football playoffs and things of that nature. But first, let's get over to Jacksonville on the Titan Tomorrow hotline, and we're joined by Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, doing well. It's good to be on with you, and obviously a big weekend coming up. It's hard to believe that, and to kind of set the stage for what's going on, we've got the regular season games this weekend. Obviously, next weekend is the SEC championship game. And we can't forget that there are also going to be some regular season games next week. It won't be a full schedule because some teams have already finished their season, like South Carolina and Kentucky. But there will still be several games to make up next weekend. And if that's not enough, on Wednesday starts the early signing period. So the coaches who are playing games will also have to deal with getting recruits signed in the early signing period, so it's going to be a rather hectic day, and it Shane, for the next 10 days for these coaches.
Yeah, it really is. And speaking of the early signing period, don't you think that most of these coaches, that they pretty much know who's signing? There's not going to be any. It's like back in the day when the kid pulled out the 4 or 5 hats, and then none of that happens. You think is going to happen during this early signing period, right?
There's always a little bit of that. Because everyone wants their 15 minutes of fame. But I think based on what we've seen before, I think it would be minimized to a point. And again, the thing we need to remember is that early signing period is just the first time that they sign, and then they'll have the original or the second signing period in February. And we'll talk more about signing period when we're not doing games, but particularly Shane for the two coaches in the SEC championship game, it will be a bit of a challenge. But I do think they probably basically know who's going to sign, so it may not be as much of a being rushed as we thought it might be.
Yeah, and honestly, I haven't followed the recruiting, the early signing. Just speaking of Florida, do you think pretty much their entire class is signing early, or they still got some guys out there that may sign in February?
Oh, I think there's always some guys out there who may sign in February, and I think the other issue that we've got here is with the and again, you've got the rules where you've got kids who are coming back, where the eligibility was not held against them, and as we think about that, how do you do the roster management? Frankly, is going to be very different than what we've seen in the past, as far as coaches trying to juggle their roster real quick. And rivals, Florida is number 6 in the country right now. They've got 26 commitments in the class of 2021. Bama, Ohio State, Oregon, LSU, Georgia, Florida, Clemson, Michigan, Southern Cal, Notre Dame, and Miami are your top 11.
Okay. It's the whole recruiting thing, and I don't think a lot of people have talked about it, but especially with COVID, and these kids can't really go do a normal visit, right?
Correct. See, these kids are signing for the first time ever basically without being able to have face-to-face visits and to be able to be on campus. Now, some of the kids have actually gone on campus for games on their own dime, shall we say. Mm-hmm. But what that means is, as you know, Shane, they're limited when they do that because there's a lot of the normal recruiting presentations that they would get that they are not able to get at this point. So, all in all, it's one of the, it's really it's the strangest recruiting situation we've ever had.
Yeah. All right, Brent, before we jump into the conference, the SEC, let's talk about there's some job openings out there. Some coaches have been fired. We do know that South Carolina has hired their new head coach, Shane Beamer. Talk a little bit about the other openings that are out there right now.
Well, obviously Vanderbilt is just still trying to figure out what they are going to do. I've heard Will Healy from Charlotte is a possibility there. That's not a guarantee either because Vanderbilt, frankly, has got to do a lot about into its facilities, particularly its stadium, which someone was being facetious, but I don't think they really were when they said Vandy may not have done anything to that stadium since probably the Jimmy Carter administration or something like that. So there's a lot of work to do there. I think the biggest question right now is going to be, will there be further openings? Will there be an opening at Tennessee with Jeremy Pruitt? And I can tell you right now, Jeremy doesn't need to lose against Vanderbilt this weekend, does he, Shane? And the other would be what's going to happen at Auburn. There is some pressure, I understand, on Alan Green, the AD, to make a change after the loss to Texas A&M last weekend. Auburn has now lost at least 4 games, 7 years in a row.
That's amazing.
That's amazing to think about that, frankly. There's still the $21 million buyout. So probably the schools that haven't made a change yet, made a decision, are getting a lot more attention than the ones who have.
Is Jimmy Sexton Gus's agent as well?
I believe he is.
Yeah, Jimmy Sexton he's got the conference by the you-know-what. I mean,
yes.
He's got more buyout money that's going to be owed to these coaches. It's crazy. Well, Brent, let's first of all, before we get into the conference, let's talk about this debacle in the Big Ten. I want to know your personal thoughts on how you feel about the Ohio State situation.
Well, this conference really messed up from the beginning. They've had horrible leadership from their commissioner and Kevin Warren and these presidents in limiting the number of games. They started late. They had the most strict rules as far as testing and so forth. But look, let's be honest. The league wants Ohio State to be their representative, and they basically they met yesterday and were able to clear the path for Ohio State to be able to get in. Now you still got the championship game to go. They won't be playing Michigan this weekend. There was a lot of talk, and that was really all it was, about maybe Ohio State playing Texas A&M this weekend, since A&M and Ole Miss was delayed. But that's basically your bottom line, is they feel that Ohio State will be, and is their best representative to get in the playoffs, and that would get the playoff money that comes from that. And they think that Ohio State will be able to win a game and maybe even 2. Obviously, a lot of other leagues are not happy about that because Ohio State has played a very limited amount of games, and you're going to have a real argument before it's over, I believe, about did Ohio State play enough games compared to, say, someone who is 9-1 or 10-1 or something of that nature. But you've also got the argument here real quick that through the eye test, which is the big term again for this year, that Ohio State would be one of the best 4 teams in the country. So the bottom line right now is what's happened this week is the presidents, ADs, commissioner, has basically set aside a lot of their minimums, and it's going to allow Ohio State, if they take care of business, to go ahead and get in the playoffs. And that's the thing that they were looking for all along.
Yeah, and it really ticks me off because Ohio State's played, is it 4 or 5 games that they've played so far?
Yeah, I'll look and find out, but yes.
Yeah, I can't even remember. I mean, it's not many, and I just don't think it's right when you're going to look at Alabama and Florida, Clemson and Notre Dame, who all played 10 and 11 games. And I understand the eye test. I get it. And I feel bad for those kids because they deserve a chance to play. But their leadership, in my opinion, dropped the ball. And so
they did.
Of course, the Big Ten, all the ADs and presidents, let's change the rules so we can get someone in the 14 playoffs so we can get a piece of the pie, all that money that's going to be distributed. I think they should, there's no way it's going to happen, but I say kick them to the curb. Again, I feel bad. I would feel bad if that happened for the kids because, think about it. Justin Fields, and he was one of those guys along with Trevor Lawrence that was beating down the door back when the pandemic let us play. But it just, I tell you what, Brent, I've never, even when the Gators play, I sit there and I watch the game different than a fan. I don't scream when anything happens. I don't do anything. But I tell you what, when that damn Big Ten games play, I'm gonna get a bunch of purple gear and I'm gonna root hard for the damn Northwestern Wildcats.
I understand it. Well, and to answer your question, they're 5-0. They're going to play Michigan this weekend after beating Michigan State last weekend. And again, the minimum was going to be 6 games to be able to get eligible for the playoffs. So again, I think a lot of people will be rooting against them, as you are too. So, but that's basically what's happened.
Got a couple of Facebook Lives here brought to you by Metal Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Dan, our friend out in Texas, says Vanderbilt has now hiring posters posted at every Publix for head coach. And then Rick asks, does UF still have Gator Getters? No, the Gator Getters, gosh, they got rid of the Gator Getters in the 90s, I think. I don't know if they were always here when Coach Spurrier was here, but I can't remember the last year. I'm sure somebody listening knows when they abolished the Gator Getters. Dan has a good question here, Brent, and you may be able to answer it. He says, will there be even more portal transfers because of this year doesn't count towards your eligibility?
Yes. Yeah, that's my answer to that. And the other thing that we also need to remember is, and this was going to happen last year, but it's going in next year at some point. Now it may be the middle of the year before it happens, but remember, everyone's going to get a mulligan. They will get one free waiver to transfer wherever they want to. So at that point, will things really be the Wild Wild West when that happens? So his question is a good one. That is why roster management next year is going to be such a challenge for these coaches.
Yeah. So your one-time get out of transfer for free card, so to speak. Well, if you transfer this year, it doesn't matter because everybody gets another year of eligibility. You're talking about only in the future, correct?
Yes. See, this was before the pandemic. The transfer waiver to get one free, to use that terminology, was supposed to happen in the spring of this year, but obviously when COVID hit in March, that delayed everything, including the transfer rule. But that is something that will go into effect. Again, not this year, but at some point next year. We're not sure quite when the date of that's going to be, so that will make things a little bit more complicated. It will, frankly, it will help some players, but it's also going to be a lot more to keep up with these coaches.
Yeah, we're speaking with Brent Beaird here on the Titan MR Hotline. You can follow Brent on Twitter at Brent Beaird. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from WrapSpot. December is your lucky month at WrapSpot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. All right, jumping into the conference. We got some somewhat intriguing games, in my opinion. I think Georgia at Missouri
Yes.
Could be a dicey game. I mean, Missouri coming off the big win, come from behind against Arkansas. I think now Eli Drinkwitz is the coach of the year, in my opinion. They
Yep.
sit at 5-3. Don't you think this is a dicey game for the Dogs?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, you're talking about a lot colder weather than Georgia probably is used to, although it's been cold in Athens because I've got daughters who live in that area. Missouri's won 5 of 6. They're 5-1 at home. Their only loss has been Alabama. Connor Basilik, over 2,000 yards passing. I'm curious what you think about how he's done this year. Larry Roundtree, 72 carries in the last 2 weeks. They've got really good receivers. One of them, Damon Hazelton, who transferred from Virginia Tech. But now their defense has struggled. They allowed Arkansas over 500 yards, and Arkansas to run for 292. Missouri's 92 in turnover margin in the nation, so they don't get a lot of takeaways. Now, Richard LeCount for Georgia may be back. That's still iffy. Remember the safety that got hurt in the motorcycle accident. They're hoping Jordan Davis, the defensive lineman with an elbow, will be back. Kendall Milton with a knee may also. Jermaine Burton at wide receiver, the last 2 weeks, 11 catches for 230 yards. No, I'm with you. I don't think there's any question that this is a dicey game for Georgia. I agree with you totally with Drinkwitz. But when they put Basilek in, and I remember you commenting on him after his first game, I'm curious what you think now, but he has made a big difference for them, hasn't he, Shane?
He has. He's a big, strong guy, got a really good arm, got great composure. You know, I was flipping through the game against Arkansas the other day, and it was a great game. And then I flipped over, and Missouri was down 14 or 17 in the fourth quarter. And I was like, wow. And I turned it back, and next thing I knew, it was tied up. So, yeah, I like him. I think that program, I think Eli's done a really good job there. We got a couple of Facebook Lives here brought to you by Melvin Law. Natasha says the Gator Getters were done with in 2000. They became the Gator Guides and went co-ed. Dan says there's possible snow for the Georgia game, so we shall see. You mentioned Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Tennessee's had trouble with Vanderbilt recently, and I still personally think win, lose, or draw. I don't know how Tennessee can keep Jeremy Pruitt. I know the buyouts, all that stuff, but it seems like schools are finding ways to manage these buyouts. Any thoughts? Think Vandy can beat Tennessee?
Well, the way that Tennessee has played this year, particularly at quarterback, I think anything can happen with them. Harrison Bailey, the freshman, is likely going to start, and they need to play him the entire game. But the real problem that Jeremy's had this year, Jeremy Pruitt, is they've really mismanaged that quarterback situation. They've had Garantano, who is your veteran on there, but he still struggles a lot. So the problem is, they played maybe like 3 quarterbacks in a particular game. They also played the Stout kid in the game last week too, and he did okay. But I still think Harrison Bailey is probably going to be their future at this point. So, and again, I think Phil Fulmer can probably keep the Wolves at bay maybe another year. If they can do that too. So I don't know necessarily. I still think Vandy just doesn't have the line of scrimmage that Tennessee does, and Tennessee will win that game. And by the way, reports earlier in the week were that Scott Cochran, who was at Bama, went to Georgia, wants that Vanderbilt job. I don't think he'll get it because he hadn't really even been a coordinator, much less a head coach. So he wants to be a head coach one day. But again, we never know what Vanderbilt may do in their decision making. But I'll say this again: this is a game Tennessee cannot afford to lose.
I agree. And you talk about the quarterback situation. You know, Brent, I've watched Tennessee play a lot this year, and who knows if they have the right quarterback on their roster, but I would not want to play quarterback in that system. It is not quarterback friendly. I watch them. No. I'm like, they don't give the kids, whoever's playing, any easy completions.
Right. Good point.
It blows my mind. Auburn's playing Mississippi State, and as Coach Spurrier says, this is one of those games. Whoever wins is going to have a give a damn level a little bit more than the other team.
Yeah.
Auburn's coming off of they're 5-4, going to Starkville. Mississippi State had a week off. They got a pretty good defense, and Bo Nix does not play well away from Jordan Hare. You think Mississippi State has any chance here?
The way Auburn's playing right now, I think they probably do. And again, Auburn really struggled in the fourth quarter, particularly against Texas A&M. I mean, Auburn basically had 21 yards in the fourth quarter and got outscored late in the game, 17-0. As we mentioned before, another 4-loss season for Gus Malzahn. Now, I think a lot of it's going to be determined by would Tank Bigsby play at running back for Auburn. If he does, that will help Auburn a lot. But right now, agreed. Will Rogers, a quarterback from Mississippi State, I don't know how much you've seen of him, Shane, but he's done a pretty good job for them. So I give Mike Leach credit for that. And their defense is very good. So, frankly, you're right. Auburn on the road with Bo Nix. Bo made 2 plays last week. I thought of you with this, that it really encompassed his whole career. One was he had a wide open receiver near the goal line and overthrew him, if you remember that. Yep. And the other play was Bo has 2 A&M defenders wrapped around him, somehow shakes free, runs to the left and into the end zone. And frankly, I thought, Shane, those 2 plays, that's Bo Nix's career in a nutshell, right?
You ain't lying. That play where he escaped and somehow didn't go down in the pocket with those 300-pounders all over him was one of the best college plays I've ever seen. But as you mentioned, his footwork in the pocket, missed a wide open touchdown. But you're right. That is Bo Nix in a nutshell. All right, so let's go. Alabama's going to be playing Arkansas. We all know this is going to get ugly. How long do you think Nick Saban leaves his starters in for this game?
Well, if they can get out to their normal lead, I would think he would certainly maybe a half at the most. Now, look, Arkansas is not going to win the game, but the reality is this is a better football team than people think it is. Now, they frankly run out of gas. They've got some depth issues. They've given up 140 points in the last 3 games. Their best defensive player, linebacker Grant Morgan, hurt his knee. Matter of fact, he leads in the nation in tackles, so he may not even play in this game. But on offense, Traylon Burks at receiver and Traylon Smith at running back have been very good. Rakeem Boyd opted out for the rest of the year, perhaps their better running back. I mean, they're number 11 in the league in defense, allowing nearly 500 yards a game. Felipe Franks has rib injuries, and we don't know if he's going to play. I don't know if you saw KJ Jefferson play last week, Shane, when he came in and replaced him, but he did a pretty good job. So, but again, Bama on all cylinders right now, playing well, like Florida in this week. Both those teams need to take care of business early and get the starters on the bench.
Yeah, I agree. So LSU comes to the Swamp. It's senior night. LSU's a mess right now. They're having a terrible year. They lost their quarterback early, Miles Brennan, who I thought was playing well at the time. They can't figure out which freshman to play. I'd play the Johnson kid if I were them.
Yep.
Eric Gilbert, who, in my opinion, could be one of the top 5 tight ends in America, and he's only a true freshman. He's opted out, going back home, going to probably transfer. Is it falling apart for Coach O there?
Yes, it frankly is. They have a lot of internal problems that they've had for the entire season. Gilbert is from Georgia. I know Alabama recruited him hard, and I'm sure that will probably end up being a Georgia-Alabama type situation. LSU is, Gator fans need to think about this a minute. LSU is 14th. They're last in the league in pass defense. averaging a 313 yards a game. So what will Kyle Trask do in that situation? I'm with you on Max Johnson. I'd rather play him over TJ Finley. And their receiver Boutte is good. Emery and Tyrone Davis-Price are two decent running backs. They're struggling with their offensive line. LSU with three quarterbacks, not one, not two, but three. 18 touchdowns, 8 picks. That's all they've really been able to do in the game. And Shane, I know we talked about this the other day, but it bears repeating. Kyle Trask right now is one touchdown pass away from tying Danny Werfel's record of 39 in a season. To me, I'm comparing that, and help me on this, I'm comparing that to Joe DiMaggio in 56 straight games that he hit. I thought that was a mark Shane would never be broken, to be honest with you, of 39 in a season. Trask, frankly, is going to smash that. And I hope Gator fans realize what an incredible record that would be.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. The only argument I would have with that is we had a ton of rushing touchdowns the year Danny threw 39 touchdowns. So, Kyle, somebody told me the other day, and I meant to look this up, but out of his 38 touchdowns, like 13 have come inside the 5-yard line or something. I don't know if that's right. That's just what, most people are turning around handing that off, but he's had a phenomenal year. His story is outstanding. But Brent, I keep hearing Gator fans want us to be able to run the football. And I try to tell them, who gives a damn if we run the football? The object is to win the game, and he's had a tremendous year. Back to LSU, they patted themselves on the back and gave themselves this bowl ban.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how about that?
Well, and here's something else to think about. I don't know how safe Orgeron is, and I don't mean by wins and losses. It's the Title IX situation that people need to remember. Shane, as they investigate that situation, remember there were 9 football players that were named in that story, and they punished 2 of them. 7 of them they did not. As they drill down in that situation, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but we need to be careful and watch and see how that's going to affect Orgeron. Because, look, at some point, Shane, if you're the head coach, it still falls on your shoulders, does it not?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
That's going to be the thing. To me, if there's any change at LSU, it may be because of that, Shane, more than it would be by 4 in wins and losses.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump forward to the SEC championship game, and obviously we'll talk to you next week. But it's a shame being in this pandemic because, like I've said, the SEC championship game atmosphere is better than any in all of sports.
Yes.
I'm talking Super Bowls, Final Fours. There's nothing like the SEC championship game. What, they're going to have about 18,000 people there?
Yeah, maybe. And listen, the ACC championship game is having less than 10, if you can imagine that. So basically, again, around 25%. So yes, it'll be even less than 20,000.
Speaking of the ACC championship game, this has got to be the biggest one they've ever had, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt about it. With the stakes that are going on there with Clemson and Notre Dame. Notre Dame winning the first game. If Clemson wins this game, there's a lot of thought that both Clemson and Notre Dame will go into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with that. Got any nuggets for us, Brent?
Well, I think the thing I know I mentioned some of the guys at Arkansas who may or may not play. I mentioned Grant Morgan. Montserrat Brown is one of their quarterbacks who he may be hurt and he may not be able to play either. I meant to mention this with Georgia. If you're a Bulldog fan, the Georgia seniors are 42-9. The all-time record is 45. So with the bowl game, they may be able to tie that. I'm curious from your perspective. your senior year, how important that is to guys. If you're a senior in a football team and you're going to have a chance with your class to have, or at least tie the all-time record of wins for senior class, Shane, how important is that to a player?
Well, as a player, you probably don't realize it until a media member or a coach brings it up.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you would love for your freshman class, senior class, however you want to look at it, be the all-time winningest class in school history, because that goes a long ways. That's something, Coach Beaird talks about. That's something you remember the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
So and it's just like, I didn't realize this until a few years ago when Coach became the ambassador, that every one of his 12 teams at Florida, everybody that played for him won a minimum of 9 games in a year.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is amazing. Brent, before we let you go, I wanted to get your comments. College basketball's pretty much in the swing of things now, a lot of cancellations, but I feel like they're doing a pretty good job with it. Coach K comes out with some comments after they lose to Illinois. Now, look, I watch a lot of college basketball. Duke ain't very good. And I don't know. I understand the big picture here, but let's just talk sports. Do you think he's wanting them to cancel the season because they ain't very talented? On the eyeball test, Duke does not look athletic at all. But just your comments on what you thought about what Coach K said.
I certainly noticed that, and I know he's a real ambassador for the game. But look, I'll be frank with you. The same thought went through my mind. Was he just wants some time to see what he can do with his team. Is what it amounts to, because they are struggling. If you've seen them play, they're very un-Duke-like. We can put it that way. So I would agree with that. Now, look, what college basketball probably should have done, and I know Rick Pitino mentioned this a few weeks ago, was we really should have waited and started in January and even moved March Madness to May, which I've always thought college basketball does himself a disservice when they start during football season, that people would get a lot more interested in it. I know that would be it goes against the norm, but look, sometimes you got to think outside the box with these situations. So no, I'm with you. That was my thought process too. Shane, was he just wants more time where he can have a month or so to work on his team to see what he can do to get to help them get a lot better.
Yeah, they're not very good at all. Well, Brent, be safe, my man. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next Thursday, and we'll see how these games go this weekend.
Good. Look forward to it, pal. Take care.
Yep, that's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MRI hotline, and you can follow him on Twitter at Brent Beaird. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 4 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. You're going to take our first time out of the program. When we come back, we'll be joined by Mike Ridaught from the PrepZone.com talking high school playoffs. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios.
This is Shane Matthews. Thank you for listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. You can also check me out on Inside the Huddle with Steve Russell and the head ball coach Steve Spurrier. Tune in every Tuesday during football season on WRUF 98.1 FM, 8:50 a.m. at 10 o'clock in the morning, or find us on your favorite podcast platform. We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Ribs, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Wrap Spot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Radware for all your promotional needs, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Dar Shakow Insurance, If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Thursday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration points where the Gators go to celebrate. With premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Palmetto Moon, Medici's, Nike, the Keys Grill and Piano Bar. Opening soon, Dave & Buster's, and coming spring of 2021, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators go to celebrate. I want to thank Brent Beaird for joining us. We're going to head to the Titan Tomorrow hotline here in just a second. But first, I want to give you the This Day in Sports brought to you by Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. This month, get a free annual maintenance plan with every residential duct cleaning purchase, which is a $199 value. Our service department is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for your convenience. Comfort Day, This Day in Sports, 2001. The 67th Heisman Trophy Award goes to Rex Grossman. Nope, should have gone to Rex Grossman, but it went to Eric Crouch somehow. That's brought to you by Comfort Temp. Now we're going to head to the Titan Tomorrow hotline, and we're joined by the PrepZone.com's Mike Ridaught for the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Shane. That just goes to show that the Heisman Trophy doesn't always go to the best player.
No, I mean, that was ridiculous. I pulled that up, and I figured Gator fans would love to hear that. So, Mike,
Right.
Gosh, we have some games set for the state championship, which I think those start next week. We have some finals coming up for tomorrow night. Give us a little rundown of what's happening in high school sports.
Actually, Shane, now that all 8 state championship games are going to be played at Doak Campbell Stadium. Originally they were going to play 1A through 4A state championship games at Gene Cox Stadium in Tallahassee this week. However, when they decided they would play all 8 state championship games at Doak Campbell Stadium, they've moved 1A through 4A back a week. So all 8 state championship games will be played next week. You've got 2 games per day, December the 16th through the 19th. Hawthorne has already punched their ticket. They'll be playing in their first ever state championship game in Class 1A. That will be on Thursday night at 7 p.m. But 1A through 4A championship games are set. You got University Christian and Champagnat Catholic in Class 2A, Trinity Christian out of Jacksonville and Chaminade Madonna in Class 3A, and Bowles of Jacksonville and Cardinal Givens of Fort Lauderdale in 4A. So a bunch of Jacksonville schools will be participating next week. And then you got Final Fours, state semifinal action in 5A through 8A. So after this Friday, we'll have all 8 championship games set.
Yep. So you just mentioned some of the smaller classifications. Looks like in 4A, it's where Bowles is playing, right? 4A?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So we got private versus private. Here, I'm on my tangent again here, Mike.
Okay.
University Christian private. Who are they playing?
University Christian will be playing against defending state champion Champagnat Catholic.
Okay, another private school. 1A, we got public schools playing. All right, let's talk about Cornelius Ingram, the job he has done. As you mentioned, they won boys and girls basketball titles last year. Now they're going for their first football title. I want to say you called the game against Madison County, who was a powerhouse. Tell us how that game turned out. I mean, we obviously know that Hawthorne won, but what did they do to win this game?
It basically came down to defense. I mean, that's been the cornerstone of this Hawthorne football team. In fact, Shane, in their last 5 games, this Hawthorne defense has only allowed a total of 29 points. I mentioned to you recently that Wildwood went to Newberry, and that Wildwood quarterback accounted for 6 touchdowns against Newberry, but against Hawthorne at home, Wildwood scored a total of 8 points. So defense has been big for this Hawthorne football team. But, they had to slay the giant in order to get to the Class 1A state championship. Madison County took an early 6-0 lead late in the first quarter. Trey Lawrence, who's going to be a part of the Hornets basketball team, was a part of that state championship you just mentioned. It was the Hawthorne boys basketball team's first state title since 1987. But Dre Lawrence with a touchdown run. He's a senior. And then late in the first half, they got a little momentum heading into the locker room. Chaz Mackey, their quarterback who transferred from North Marion, threw a 33-yard touchdown pass to John Quavis Jones. Now, here's the downside to this situation with Jones. He ends up throwing a punch late in the third quarter, got ejected from the game, and from what I understand, may not play in the state championship game. That would be a huge loss. It's a guy that's averaging 12.8 yards per catch. He's averaging 7.8 yards per carry. So it would be a big loss if Jones can't play in that game. But second half, Madison County scores on a 51-yard touchdown run with 10 seconds to play in the third quarter. Madison County started driving in the fourth quarter. They're up 2. You figure another touchdown, ball game's over. However, a ball snapped over the head of the quarterback, was scooped up at midfield by Samuel Driver. He takes it to the house with 5:07 to play to give Hawthorne an 18-14 lead. And then Shane, their defense in the last couple of minutes of the game, forced a fumble, and then also a big Thurman Mills interception to put the game on ice. So, yeah, congratulations to Cornelius Ingram and Hawthorne. What a run, 10-2 this year, and they're going to play for their first ever state championship in football in school history against a Baker team, Shane, that will be tough to beat. I mean, Baker is a team that's rushed for almost 5,000 yards, 4,947 yards. They've got a senior running back in Joseph Brunson, who has rushed for 2,460 yards and 27 touchdowns. He's got 12 100-yard games this year. And then if that's not enough, they've got a sophomore in Caleb Wagner, who has also rushed for over 1,000 yards, 1,251 yards, 16 touchdowns, and he's got 6 games of over 100 yards this year. So it'll be a tough matchup against a physical Baker team, but I think going against Madison County will get them ready for that type of matchup.
And just so people know, because we had some confusion last week, because I wasn't sure where Baker was located. It's not Baker County out of McClenny. This is, I think, up in the Panhandle, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. So Trinity Catholic down in Ocala had to face Trinity Christian out of Jacksonville. Their season ended. It was a tremendous season for John Brantley and the Celtics. Who's Trinity Christian playing now?
Trinity Christian will play against Chaminade Madonna, which is the three-time defending state champion. So it'll be a tough matchup for the Conquerors. But, you kind of felt like Trinity Christian was going to go into this game with a little revenge on their mind. Trinity Catholic knocked Trinity Christian out of the playoffs last year. And I think, as John Brantley said, that kind of stuck with the Conquerors. A game that ended up being, the score may not have been indicative of the way it was played, at least early. 56-33 was the final score. Caleb Killian, their running back, the Conquerors running back, he's got offers from Florida and Southern Miss, USF. He had 174 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns in the game. Trinity Catholic season comes to an end at 7-4. Oh, by the way, Marcus Burke, who's a Florida commit, hauled in an 80-yard touchdown pass. And a big day for Jamarian Samuel. He rushed for over 2,000 yards last year for Trinity Catholic, had 143 yards on 23 carries. But again, we're talking about a different animal here with Trinity Christian, a perennial power. The future does look bright, though, for Trinity Catholic. John Brantley, and none of these coaches got a chance to go through spring practice. So to be able to get to the Final Four was a pretty good feat for Brantley. Their junior varsity team went undefeated, so I think the future is bright there in Ocala.
At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. Speaking with Mike Ridaught here on the Titan MR hotline on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. Columbia down up in Lake City had a pretty good run through the playoffs, fell a little short to St. Augustine. How'd that game go?
Yeah, St. Augustine, it's just a team that likes to ground and pound, and it was tough. Columbia, I think, was fortunate the week before against Daytona Beach Mainland. Kind of same situation with that Madison County Hawthorne game, in that Mainland was driving, a fumble in midair, was recovered, and went the other way, 58 yards with 2:50 to play in the game. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been talking about St. Augustine and Columbia. But, again, Columbia found a way to win that game. They started the season 0-5. 5-5 going into that game against St. Augustine. I think the better team won that football game. St. Augustine now, Shane, will go to Lake Minneola, and then Miami Central, which is the defending state champion in 6A, will play against Palmetto in 6A in the Final Four.
And then there was another big playoff game to get to the regional finals, if I'm not mistaken, in Marion County, a rematch, Vanguard and Dunellen. And I was a little surprised Dunellen won this game.
Yeah, I was too, because, you think back to this game when it was played on October the 23rd, and the quarterback for Dunellen, Trent Townsend, hit LeVar Fitzpatrick in the end zone last few seconds of the game. So they still won from Vanguard in the first meeting. So I thought, okay, Vanguard, they're going to beat them the second time around. Well, not so fast, my friend, as the coach always says. Turned into a nail biter, even though both teams scored on their opening possession. And by the way, Shane, this was the region final, so it was for the right to go to the state semifinals. I'll get to that in just a minute. But Dunellen scores on their first drive. Fitzpatrick, who I mentioned, received the kick, returned it 78 yards. They got down to the Knights' 17-yard line, and then Demetrius McCants ends up scoring on a 3-yard touchdown run. Vanguard comes right back. Tony Johnson takes it 52 yards on a sweep to put them in position. The drive kind of stalled. They had to settle for a 41-yard field goal by Grandin Wilcox to make it 6-3. Vanguard actually took the lead at 10-6 in this game. Both teams missed field goals. Vanguard, I think, attempted 2 field goals, one in the second, one in the third, and both from 30 yards out, but neither one of them were able to connect. And then Dunellen also missed a field goal attempt to end the first half. So some missed opportunities there. But the biggest play in the game, Shane, came with about 3 minutes to play, a 4th down and 2 at the Dunellen 2-yard line. Vanguard said, instead of going for a chip shot field goal to tie this game, they went all in. They were stopped short. And then they were not able to get the football back, and Dunellen ends up winning the football game. So it starts, I think, with defense. That's one thing that you see about these state playoff games. The teams that play really good defense appear to be, the teams that are heading to Tallahassee. And for Dunellen, it's a team that doesn't give up a whole lot of points. Dunellen's defense has only given up 7.5 points per game, Shane. Now, they're going to play in Tallahassee this week. If they win, they'll play again in Tallahassee next week. They're going to travel to Rickards High School this week for the 5A state semifinals. Rickards is, I think, a beatable team. Their defense gives up an average of 15 points per game, so they're going to keep it close. But they've only run for 1,500 yards this year. I like Dunellen in a close one. Jesuit of Tampa, by the way, knocked off Orlando Jones, which is kind of a big win in the region final. They'll have to go to American Heritage. I think American Heritage will win that football game. American Heritage had knocked off defending state champion Miami Northwestern earlier in the playoffs. Northwestern had won 3 straight state titles, but Dunellen at least is still alive, the only Marion County team left in the state playoffs.
So, Mike, will you be involved calling any of the state championship games?
I am. We're going to go broadcast Hawthorne. We'll have the game on Thursday night, December the 17th on 106.9. We've been very fortunate the last 2 weeks with an 18-14 game that was decided in the last couple of minutes with the Hawthorne-Madison County game. And the week before that, as you know, we broadcast Buchholz a double overtime loss to Niceville at home. Probably the best game I've seen in a couple of years. So we've been fortunate with our radio coverage. Thank God we just got through it, with all the COVID situation. So I'm really excited, looking forward to, not necessarily looking forward to going to Doak Campbell Stadium, but definitely looking forward to going over there and broadcasting Hawthorne in the state championship. The irony in that, Cornelius Ingram being a former Gator, he kind of grimaced when he talked about having to go over to Tallahassee and play in that stadium. And the irony, too, is that the team that he will play is called the Baker Gators.
Huh. Interesting. So they're going to be playing 2 games each day in Tallahassee?
That's correct. Yep. You'll have 2 on Wednesday, 2 Thursday, 2 Friday, 2 Saturday for the 8 state championship games.
We got a Facebook Live here brought to you by Mellon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. John says he got his tickets yesterday for the Niceville-Edgewater game. Should be a great one. Ooh. Is that for the state title?
That's going to be for the state semifinals. But Niceville had to go to Fleming Island. Shane, Niceville jumped out to a 35-0 lead in that game. I really thought it was, Mark Whittemore picked Fleming Island to win that football game. He didn't think that Niceville would be able to go back-to-back Fridays from the Panhandle to this area and come away with a win. But Niceville just got off to a great start. They end up winning the game 35-18, but Niceville will host Edgewater. That'll be a big football game. Edgewater beat Mitchell in the other region final. In the bottom part, you've got Bloomingdale and St. Thomas Aquinas, so it may not matter because you got.
Yeah,
I know you'll get on your tangent here now about St. Thomas Aquinas.
Man, that is a long trip for Edgewater from Orlando.
Yes.
To Niceville. Good gracious, that's a long ways to
yeah,
go.
And then if they're fortunate enough to win that, then they got to make the trip back to Tallahassee the week after that.
Yeah, and I guess St. Thomas has a long trip to Tallahassee as well, but we won't go there. Mike, high school basketball is in full force. I know a bunch of games have been canceled here or there, but you guys have broadcast some games. How have you seen how these schools are handling the basketball situation with COVID?
Like I told you, I think it was last week, Shane, that with basketball, it's going to be a little different because, if you have a football team that gets hit and you have to lose, X number of players, you've got a deep enough roster that you can survive. But if you are a basketball team with a limited roster, and let's just say you lose 3 starters that, or for whatever reason, may have to be quarantined. Again, they don't even have to test positive. It can affect your basketball team. And we've already seen that with Vanguard High School in Ocala. Shane, they have yet to play a game. They will play St. Francis Catholic tomorrow night. But as far as the games in our area, in fact, we were supposed to broadcast Vanguard in Gainesville there late November, and that game they're trying to reschedule. They haven't rescheduled it as of yet. So our first broadcast wasn't until last Tuesday, and it was a good one. Santa Fe went to Buchholz. Santa Fe ends up winning the game in overtime. Ernest Ross for Santa Fe, who signed with North Carolina State, finished with 31 points in the game. I'm going to see Santa Fe tonight. We'll have Santa Fe at Eastside on 106.9 FM. Both teams are 3-0, so it's a matchup of unbeaten teams tonight. If you look at a common opponent for both teams, they both played PK Young. PK Young lost to Eastside by 18. They lost at Santa Fe by 5. I think Eastside will win the basketball game tonight, but certainly Santa Fe is undefeated right now. Gainesville's 0-2. They lost to PK Young by 24, but it was a close game, going in, I think, into the fourth quarter. They lost to Palaca by 1. Buchholz 1-3. They got a new coach this year. They've been able to keep the games close, though. They lost to Ridgeview in Orange Park in their season opener by 2. I mentioned the loss to Santa Fe in overtime. They lost to St. Francis Catholic by 4. They got their first win on Saturday against Mount Dora. Also, Hawthorne 0-2, but once these football guys start joining the basketball team, I think they'll get it turned around. I mean, they lost to Ocala Forest by 44. The Forest is not 44 points better than Hawthorne once Hawthorne gets all the pieces there. And same thing with Lake City Columbia. They're 2-1 right now, but they've got a bunch of guys that played on the football team. Once they kind of start getting in that basketball shape, I think Columbia will be in the mix again. Columbia advanced to their first state semifinal since 1968 last year. I mentioned Forest. 5-1 right now. They've got a couple of very talented juniors in Russell and Lorient. North Marion 3-0. The Villages. Watch out for the Villages, Shane. They've got Trey Mann's younger brother, Nasir Mann, 6'4" senior. Ezekiel Williamson has already committed to Voorhees. He's either committed or signed. So the Villages, I think, will be pretty good this year. So, yeah, I'm excited about high school basketball. But as you can tell, we're only, 3, 4, 5 games in for some of these teams. So still a lot of basketball yet to be played.
Good stuff, Mike. You can check all his good stuff out on theprepzone.com. We'll talk to you soon, Mike. Appreciate it, buddy.
All right, Shane. Thanks for the time. Have a good day.
Yeah. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We'll have JC. We'll also have former LSU quarterback Josh Booty on the program. Tomorrow is the Peachland Dentistry, JC, and the QB Weekend Picks. Today's show's a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. Be safe out there, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, Gator Nation. This is your former head ball coach, Steve Spurrier. Check out our show, Inside the Huddle with Shane Matthews and Steve Russell, every Tuesday during football season on 8:50 a.m. and 98.1 FM WRUF at 10 o'clock a.m.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. Celebration Point Town Center, Center State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie, Chick-fil-A on Archer Road, Aver and Smith Personal Injury Attorneys, Orange Theory Fitness, PRP Regeneration Specialist, and Dowling Signs.